The sun was dipping low, painting the fields gold when it happened. I was in the barn fixing a busted latch on the grain door while my daughter, Emily, sat on the fence tossing apples to our horses. It was just another quiet evening on the ranch, until a truck screeched to a halt at the gate. 3 men piled out, wearing black polo shirts with HOA security, printed in cheap white letters. They had no badges, no identification, but they carried themselves like they owned the place. One of them, a bulky guy with mirrored sunglasses, pulled a handgun from his holster and pointed it straight at Emily. "Step off the fence, little girl," he barked. My heart froze. Emily's eyes went wide, the apple slipping from her fingers and landing in the dust. For a split second, time stopped. Then the old military instinct in me kicked in. But before I could even move, Emily did. Because what these fake cops didn't know was that my daughter wasn't some helpless kid. Emily was 23, a Navy veteran, and a trainer for active SEAL candidates. She'd grown up on this ranch, learned discipline from the service, and could dismantle a firearm blindfolded in under 30 seconds. And in that moment, she didn't flinch. Her voice was calm, steady. "You really want to point that at me?" The man sneered. "Orders from the HOA. Your family's been ignoring fines. We're here to enforce compliance. Now get inside before—" He never finished his sentence. Emily swung down from the fence with the grace of someone who drilled thousands of landings. In one smooth motion, she stepped forward, twisted his wrist, and sent the gun clattering into the dirt. Before he could react, she slammed him to the ground with a clean armbar. The other 2 HOA cops froze, their bravado instantly evaporating. "What the hell?" one of them stammered. But Emily wasn't done. She pinned the first man with her knee and glared at the others. "Point another weapon at me or my family, and you'll wish the cops get here before I'm finished with you." I finally stepped in, holding up my phone. "Already called them," I said, my voice steady but burning with rage. "And by the way, you just committed armed assault on private property. Hope your little HOA budget covers the lawyer you'll need." The 2 remaining men glanced at each other, suddenly looking a lot less confident. One tried to bluster. We were just carrying out orders," the HOA president said. Emily snapped her head toward him, her eyes cold. "The HOA doesn't outrank the Constitution. You idiots just pulled a weapon on federal land." They blinked in confusion. That's when I pointed toward the barn, where a government plaque was mounted on the side. "Registered Wildlife Conservation Site, U.S. Protected." "Yeah," I said, crossing my arms. "You didn't just trespass. You pulled a gun on protected federal property. That's a felony." As if on cue, sirens wailed in the distance. The real sheriff's department trucks rolled up fast, gravel spraying as deputies jumped out. Within seconds, the HOA cops were on their knees, hands zip-tied behind their backs. The sheriff himself approached me, shaking his head. "We've been tracking reports about these wannabe enforcers. Didn't expect them to be dumb enough to brandish a weapon on your place." I nodded toward Emily, still standing tall, her arms folded, calm as ever. "Didn't expect them to pick the wrong target either." Karen, the HOA president, showed up minutes later, shrieking like a banshee as the men were loaded into the back of cruisers. "This is a misunderstanding. They were just doing their job. He owes the HOA." The sheriff cut her off. "Lady, they pulled a gun on his daughter. You're lucky we don't haul you in too for conspiracy. Get off this property before I change my mind." For once, Karen didn't have a comeback. She stomped back to her car, red-faced and humiliated, as the neighbors who'd gathered to watch laughed her off the road. Later that night, Emily and I sat on the porch, sipping iced tea. The stars were out, clear and sharp. She leaned back in her chair, smirking. "Think they'll try that again?" I chuckled. "Not unless they want to spend the rest of their lives in prison." The story made headlines the next day. HOA hires fake cops. Navy SEAL trainer daughter dismantles armed attack. The footage from my security cameras even went viral. The HOA board scrambled to do damage control, but it was too late. Karen lost her presidency. The security team faced federal charges, and my family's ranch was declared off-limits to any further HOA interference. And Emily? She just shrugged it off like it was another training drill. But I'll never forget the look on that man's face when he realized the helpless girl he pointed a gun at was the most dangerous person he'd meet all year. Because if you point a gun at my daughter, you're not facing a victim. You're facing a Navy SEAL trainer.